to make just a basic bread dough for a loaf of bread or rolls, whichever one you prefer. It's a pretty simple recipe. I have cut this recipe in half. I'll put a link down below to the YouTube channel contributor that I got the recipe from. I cut it in half because it's just my husband and myself. So I have used 3.5 cups of bread flour, 1.5 cups of water, 1 tablespoon of instant yeast, 3 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of oil in my ingredients. That's cutting the recipe in half. Hold on, I actually think I only put 3 cups of bread flour in there, so let me throw that other 1/2 cup in there. Now I will say that I'm not using my normal bread flour today. Anything, flour, cornmeal, anything I use, I try to only use White Lily. The store didn't have that in our current situation of panic buying, so I'm trying gold medal. So if this doesn't turn out as great as normal, that would be why. I've made this bread several times before and it comes out really, really well, and it's a very simple recipe. Okay, so I've already added the salt to my bread mixture. I add a little more salt than what it's called for just because it needs a little bit more flavor. You could even add honey into it if you want to. My yeast mixture has taken quite a while to fluff itself up here. I'm not sure what's happening with that. This is my 1 tablespoon of oil. I only use olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil in my cooking because I try to stay away from the highly processed oils. And then we will add our water and yeast. I don't want to lose any of that precious yeast in there because that is extremely hard to find right now also. It seems that I remember when I was a kid, my mom didn't buy store-bought yeast. She would make her own yeast with some sort of potato mixture, but I can't remember how she did it. If anybody else knows that way that you can come up with your own yeast using something to do with a potato, leave me some notes in the comments down below. And we're just going to mix this up. I don't know how well this is going to show up on this camera. This is an older camera that I have pulled out today. We're supposed to get rain today, so I'm trying to get my inside stuff done today so that I can work in my container gardens and add some more plants that have seedlings are getting too big to be in the house and they're ready to go outside. My whole kitchen is just a mess today. Okay, now after we stir it up, we're going to turn it on to this to knead it a little bit. It says to knead it for 8 minutes and then let it rest. I don't time it by any means. I just know what it's supposed to look like when you're done. Now this is a rather sticky dough, so if you don't like that on your hands, you can definitely use your dough thing. this thing is, these little plastic, silicone, whatever they are, cutting boards work really well, except for that they will slide all over your countertop. So you kind of have to knead with one hand and hold it with the other one. I don't have what I would call by any means a great kneading technique. If you're really good at making bread, which I'm not, then you'll know instinctively when it's time to stop kneading it. I don't know if you can tell on the camera how the texture of the bread has changed as we've been kneading it, but that's what you want. Now we are going to let it rest for about 3 minutes, cover it up. and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I apologize for the noise from the air conditioner, but this is Alabama in the springtime and it is hot. Now we've let this rest for, I guess, about a minute or two, maybe a little longer. Now I'm going to try to shape it into a ball. I don't want to work it a whole lot more because I don't want to end up with a tough loaf of bread. I just want to kind of shape it, tuck it. This thing sliding all over my camera is going to drive me cuckoo. If you don't have one of these little dough scrapers of any kind, boy, get you one. Dollar Tree, Amazon, somewhere. It's worth its weight in gold. Okay, now we have it shaped into a ball. You can kind of see the texture that you want. It's still sticky, but it's springy. Now I have buttered this bowl up a little bit just so it doesn't stick. I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit of flour in the bottom of the bowl. Plop the sticky dough right in there. We're going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on the top. Now, ew, but it feels good. I like to work with dough. We are going to cover this and we're going to let it rise for about an hour and a half, and then we'll be back. Okay, we're going to work on our bread a little bit more. Now I have one small loaf pan, and then I have a cast iron skillet over here that I have buttered and let the butter melt a little bit on. And I will divide this dough up. Now remember, I cut this recipe in half. So if you want a big loaf or 2 loaves, you can double the recipe to what its original one was. But it's just me and my husband, I don't need that much. So it has been rising for a little over an hour now. You can see it's jiggly and nice. It's going to be a sticky dough. Now, what did I do with my thing? You're definitely going to want your dough scraper for this. Or in my case, it's an icing scraper that I use as a dough scraper. And I buttered this bowl up, but you might would be better to put some olive oil in it instead of butter to help it come out a little easier. You want to turn it back onto your floured surface. Now we're going to work it a little, but not a lot. We're going to cut it in half. You can cut it in 4 pieces, do it all in one great big loaf, however you want to do it. So I'm also making rolls, so I'm cutting it in half. And I kind of roll it up. You want to roll it out longer than the pan that you're putting it in. And I'll show you why in just a second. Because you're going to take the two ends, kind of put them, wrap it in itself. A little more flour on it. Wrap it in itself. I'm going to put this in a very well buttered loaf pan. Remember, my loaf pan is pretty small. Let's see if we can find something a little better to cover that with. We're going to leave it to rise for an hour again. Now we're going to work on our rolls. This is the other half of the dough. Like I said, you can do 2 loaves, you can do all 1 loaf, you can do all of it rolls if you want to. And you're not really hard kneading it, you're just kind of fluffing with it. Now I'm going to cut them, and then you just kind of pull them out and tuck them under. Pull them out, tuck them under, pull them out and tuck them under until you get a nice round shape. And you can make them as big or as small as you like. Pop them in my buttered cast iron skillet. Keep kind of patting your hands on the flour so they don't stick too bad. That one stuck quite a bit to my fingers. imagine some of you will be better at getting a more consistent size out of your rolls than I am. I don't seem to be cutting them very equally today. Now this dough also freezes pretty well, so if you only want to make one small loaf at a time and then put the rest of it in the freezer for later, it will freeze really well. And you pull and tuck these under rather than rolling them out, because if you roll them out and cut them like a biscuit, you're going to get a roll that is the consistency of a biscuit. So you want to just kind of stick your finger under there and tuck it. Pull it, stick your finger under there and tuck it. Now we're also going to cover our rolls and we're going to let them rise for 1 hour and then we'll be back. Now you can see how much they've risen after an hour. They're still kind of spongy. Normally I'd have a little bit more in the loaf pan, a little bit less in the roll pan, but my husband's going to be off tomorrow, so we're going to use those rolls a lot more than we would the sandwich bread. So now you're going to go in a preheated 400-degree oven for about maybe 15-20 minutes. You just have to watch it as soon as it starts to brown, because this is a light fluffy bread. You don't want a dark crunchy crust on top of it. You just want it to just start to get a little bit golden, and then it'll be done. Now on the rolls, I'm going to add this butter. This has got some chopped up garlic in it, a little bit of thyme, and a little bit of rosemary, and I'm going to put that on the rolls after they start to get almost done. Okay, they are out of the oven, and I'm going to tell you what I did wrong here. On these rolls, you see how they're divoted in the middle, some of them? I put the butter on too soon. Don't put the butter on until they are almost done, or you're going to get those divots in the middle. Now, it'll still taste great, but I don't like the way that looks. This is the loaf. I have buttered the top of it since it came out of the oven to keep it from getting dry, but those are going to be delicious, and it's an incredibly simple bread recipe that is fantastic every time, even if you have a little divot.